Hey everybody, it's Maggie from Personal Euphoria. And a couple weeks ago, I went over some exercises for gait health that really emphasized sort of focusing more on what's happening with the muscles in the sides of your glutes, but making sure that the back of your glute engages when you walk is really important too. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So in part because of general tightnesses in our body and our footwear, I'm going to exaggerate the way a lot of people walk, but we have a tendency to lift a leg and put it down, lift a leg and put it down, lift a leg and put it down, almost like we're marching. And part of that is, if you've ever seen a woman in high heels, she definitely walks more like that and kicks out her hips side to side, which incorporates those side muscles we talked about last time. Now, any shoe that has a heel lift encourages that, and the higher the heel, the more it encourages that. So one thing to recognize is most shoes have a heel lift, including like men's dress shoes, and it just gets higher from there. So unless you've intentionally bought minimalist shoes or shoes with like a negative heel, your chances are the footwear you're in is gonna encourage you to move with that tendency. And then because we sit all day and we tend to have tighter hip flexors, that happens too. Because our glutes generally aren't actually strong enough for us to use them when we walk. But when you go for a walk, you want to think less like marching in place and more like a skater where you press off from the back leg and then press off from the back leg. I know I don't have a lot of room here, but really think, when I press off, do I feel my glute? So the glute has to engage, but the muscles in the front of the leg have to stretch for you to be able to do that. So the next time you take a walk, just start to notice, do you actually feel your butt involved in the movement? Is it engaging? And if not, what can you change in your body to make it engage, right? And you don't have to do that for your whole walk. You can do it for a little bit and build up, because if you walk one way and you change it all at once, you might be really sore. A key thing to think about when you do this is if you say, okay, Maggie told me I should feel my butt, and I'm trying to, but what I feel is my back, then while you're walking is not yet the time for you to play with this. Chances are your glute muscle isn't firing right, and so the back is doing the work, and that is super common. If that's happening to you, what you would want to start with is having your hand on something so you can completely balance. You do not want this move to have to be about balance. So your hand would be on an object. You'd shift your weight slightly into one leg, just so one leg is free to move. And then you would pull that leg back behind you, squeezing the glute when you do that. So if you notice, I'm not actually getting that leg to move very far, right? If I move from my back, I can get a lot more movement. But if I move from my glute, it's much smaller, okay? So you play with that and just start to feel the glute activate without the back turning on. Now, to make sure that glute activates without the back, you've actually got to connect at your abs, right? Because it's my abs that keep the back stable while my butt engages to pull the leg back. A common mistake people do here is to turn out. So they pull the leg back on an angle. It's not wrong, it's not going to hurt you, but it's not actually targeting the same muscles we want to engage when we think of propelling ourselves forward on a walk. All right? So you would do that on both sides. And then also a hip flexor stretch could be really helpful for sort of training those muscles. So one of my favorite ways to do this is to kneel like you're proposing, but you inch your front foot forward. Before you move, you engage your abs and do a little tailbone tuck, and then you lean into that front leg. And you're looking for a stretch in the front of the upper thigh, the front of the pelvis, maybe slightly into your lower abdominals, depending on where you're tight, but generally from here to here. If this position bothers your bottom knee, you can either roll up a yoga mat or a towel and pat it, and that might be enough. If not, you can do this standing in a lunge position. So you have a nice wide stance with the legs, you do that same tailbone tuck, and then bend the front knee. And you can play with pressing the heel down or lifting it up where you feel this stretch better. But again, you're looking for that stretch in the front of the hip of the back leg. And whether you're kneeling or standing, you want to think of that tuck. So, of course, it can be a little more complicated in any individual's body, but generally, you want to feel your glutes when you're walking. That's across the board for all of us. But if you can't figure out how to make them engage, or you're not sure you're feeling them, or you know you're feeling the back, you're going to go back to some basics of just standing in place, trying to feel the glute activate when the leg pulls behind you, and doing a basic hip flexor stretch. So you'll start there. And if you have any questions, post them in the comments. If you explore it on your next walk, let me know how it goes. Yeah, I hope you have a good day and keep moving.